Have you ever felt adrift in the currents of modern life, pulled in a dozen directions at once by the demands of work, the endless scroll of social media, and the constant pressure to be more, do more, and have more? It is a quiet, persistent state of anxiety, a feeling that you are a passenger in your own life, reacting to events rather than directing them. This feeling is the signature of our times, a low hum of chaos that robs us of our inner peace and leaves us feeling overwhelmed and powerless. Welcome to Stoic Understanding. Today, we embark on a journey not to a distant land, but inward, to explore an ancient operating system for the mind that is more relevant now than ever before. The problem we face is a storm of our own making. We are bombarded with information, yet starved of wisdom. We are more connected than ever, yet feel profoundly isolated. Our attention is fractured, our emotions are hijacked by headlines and notifications, and our sense of self-worth becomes dangerously tied to external validation, likes, promotions, and the opinions of others. We worry incessantly about things that have not happened, regret things that have, and overlook the only moment we truly possess, the present. This internal turmoil is not a sign of failure. It is a sign that we are navigating the complexities of the 21st century with an outdated map. The hero of our story, the new map we seek, is not a person but a philosophy. A school of thought born over 2,000 years ago in the bustling marketplaces of Athens and honed in the corridors of Roman power. It is called Stoicism. But this is not an abstract, academic philosophy meant for dusty libraries. Stoicism is a practical, actionable guide to life. It is a toolkit for building mental resilience, a compass for navigating adversity, and a blueprint for finding a state of unshakable calm and purpose, a state the ancient Stoics called apatheia, not emotionlessness, but a tranquility born from reason. The core promise of Stoicism is not to change the world around you, but to transform the world within you. It teaches that the external world, the traffic, the economy, the actions of other people, is largely beyond our control. The source of our suffering, therefore, is not the events themselves, but our judgments about them. By learning to master our perceptions, to focus our energy only on what we can control, we can build what the Stoics called an inner citadel, a mental fortress that remains secure and peaceful, no matter what storms may rage outside. This is the ultimate form of freedom. In this guide, we will walk through the foundational pillars of this profound philosophy. We will not merely discuss its history, but we will uncover its practical applications for your life, right now. We will explore the wisdom of its greatest minds, the slave-turned-philosopher Epictetus, the powerful statesman Seneca, and the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius. Each of them faced unimaginable pressures, yet they found a path to virtue and serenity. Their wisdom is a legacy, a gift waiting for us to unwrap. So let us begin our journey to a more purposeful and tranquil life together. Let us start with the single most important, most transformative principle in all of Stoicism. It is a simple idea, yet it holds the power to radically reorient your entire life. It is known as the dichotomy of control. Imagine you are standing at a crossroads. One path leads to things you can influence, and the other leads to things you cannot. The modern problem is that we spend most of our lives wandering down the wrong path, wasting our precious energy, time, and emotional resources trying to change things that are fundamentally outside of our power. We are exhausted from fighting unwinnable battles. Think about it. We worry about whether our flight will be delayed. We get angry when another driver cuts us off in traffic. We feel anxious about what a potential employer will think of us in a job interview. We are distressed by political events on the other side of the world. In each of these cases, we are investing our mental peace in outcomes we do not command. We are tying our well-being to the whims of chance and the actions of others, effectively making ourselves emotional puppets, with strings pulled by forces beyond our reach. This is the default human condition, a state of self-imposed servitude. The Stoic principle that cuts these strings comes from the philosopher Epictetus. He taught some things are up to us and some things are not up to us. Within our power are our own opinions, our judgments, our aspirations, our actions, and our reactions. In short, our inner world. Outside of our power is everything else. Our bodies, our reputations, our property, the weather, the past, the future, and the behavior of other people. The Stoic insight is that a happy and virtuous life is only possible when we learn to distinguish between these two categories with absolute clarity, and then focus exclusively on the former. The practical application of this principle is a daily mental exercise. When you feel a negative emotion begin to rise, anxiety, anger, fear, pause. Ask yourself a simple question. Is the cause of this emotion something that is within my complete control? If the answer is no, then recognize that a reasoned response is to accept it as it is. You cannot control the traffic, but you can control your reaction to it. You can choose to listen to a podcast instead of fuming with rage. You cannot control whether you get the job, but you can control how well you prepare, how professionally you present yourself, and how you respond with grace if you are not chosen. The transformation that occurs when you consistently practice this is nothing short of liberation. A vast amount of mental energy that was once wasted on fruitless worry is now reclaimed. You become more effective because your efforts are channeled exclusively toward things you can actually change. You become more resilient because your inner peace is no longer held hostage by external events. You stop seeing external circumstances as good or bad, but simply as facts to be dealt with rationally. You are no longer a leaf blown about by the wind, but a deeply rooted tree, unswayed by the passing storm. This practice requires constant vigilance. It is a muscle that must be trained. When you find yourself slipping, worrying about the opinion of a colleague or the fluctuations of the stock market, gently guide your focus back. Remind yourself of Epictetus's powerful assertion. This isn't about apathy or inaction. It is about strategic action. It is about directing your power where it has an effect. By mastering this distinction, you are taking the first and most critical step on the path to a Stoic life, a life of purpose, serenity, and unshakable inner strength. The Stoic reminder here is profound. An archer can control everything about his shot, his stance, his aim, his breathing, the release of the string. But once the arrow leaves the bow, he cannot control the sudden gust of wind that might divert it from its target. The wise archer, therefore, places his satisfaction in the quality of his actions, not in the outcome. Our lives are the same. We must find our fulfillment in acting with virtue and intention, and let go of our attachment to results that are ultimately not up to us. So if we are to focus only on what we can control, what then should be the goal of our actions? The modern world offers a confusing array of answers: happiness, wealth, fame, pleasure, power. We chase these external targets relentlessly, believing that once we achieve them, we will finally be content. But this pursuit is a trap. It is a hedonic treadmill where the finish line is always moving. The more we get, the more we want, and our peace of mind remains forever on the horizon, just out of reach. This is the great deception of our culture. The Stoic principle that provides a true north for our aspirations is the concept of virtue. The Stoics argued that the sole and ultimate good in life, the only thing that is valuable in and of itself, is virtue. Everything else, health, wealth, reputation, is considered an indifferent. This does not mean they are to be shunned, but rather that they have no intrinsic moral value. They are preferred, but they are not necessary for a good life. A person can be wealthy and miserable, or poor and content. Virtue, however, is the one quality that guarantees a flourishing life, what the Greeks called eudaimonia. The Stoics defined virtue as consisting of four interconnected cardinal qualities. The first is wisdom, not just book smarts, but the practical wisdom of knowing how to live, to navigate complex situations, and to distinguish what is truly good from what is bad. The second is justice, which means treating others with fairness, integrity, and kindness, recognizing that we are all members of a single human community. The third is courage, not only physical bravery, but the moral courage to face our fears, to speak the truth, and to stand up for what is right, even when it is difficult. The fourth virtue is temperance, or moderation. This is the practice of self-control, discipline, and balance in all aspects of life. It is the ability to master our desires and appetites, rather than being enslaved by them. In our modern world of endless consumption and instant gratification, temperance is perhaps the most challenging and essential virtue of all. Together, these four virtues form the pillars of a good character. For the Stoics, the goal of life was not to acquire external goods, but to cultivate this internal excellence. It is the one project that is entirely within our control. The practical application of this principle is to shift your life scorecard. Instead of measuring your success by your bank account, your job title, or your social media following, begin to measure it by your character. At the end of each day, instead of asking, "What did I get?" ask, "How did I act? Did I act with wisdom in a confusing situation? Was I just and fair in my dealings with others? Did I show courage when I was afraid? Did I practice temperance when faced with temptation?" This internal audit redefines what it means to have a successful day. The transformation that follows this shift is profound. Your self-worth becomes stable and resilient because it is no longer dependent on the unpredictable fluctuations of external fortune. You are freed from the exhausting race for more. You find a deeper and more meaningful sense of purpose, not in what you can accumulate, but in who you can become. Life is no longer a series of goals to be checked off, but an ongoing opportunity to practice and refine your character. This is the path to a truly rich and fulfilling existence, one that cannot be taken away from you. The Stoic reminder is a powerful one from Marcus Aurelius. The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injury. When someone acts unjustly, the virtuous response is not to retaliate in kind, but to respond with justice. When the world is chaotic, the virtuous response is to act with wisdom and temperance. Our virtue is our shield and our guide, the unwavering light that shows us the way forward, regardless of the darkness around us. The cultivation of character is the noblest pursuit of a human being. This leads to a deeper, more cosmic aspect of Stoicism that underpins the entire philosophy. The modern problem is a feeling of alienation. We often feel that we are at odds with the world, that life is a series of random, meaningless events, and that we are victims of cruel circumstance. We fight against reality, lamenting what is, wishing for what is not. This constant resistance is a primary source of our mental anguish. We feel like solitary actors on a hostile stage, struggling against a script we did not write. The Stoic principle that addresses this feeling of alienation is the concept of living in accordance with nature. For the Stoics, nature had a dual meaning. First, it meant living in accordance with our own human nature, which is to be rational and social beings. Second, and more profoundly, it meant living in harmony with the nature of the universe itself. They believed the cosmos was not a random chaos, but a single, ordered and rational system, which they called the logos. Every event, no matter how it appears to us, is a part of this vast, interconnected web of cause and effect. To live in accordance with nature, therefore, is to accept the unfolding of events with a sense of equanimity and trust. It means understanding that we are a small part of a much larger whole, and that our personal fate is interwoven with the fate of the cosmos. This does not imply passive resignation. We are still to act with virtue and do our best. But it does mean we must accept the outcomes with grace, recognizing that they are a part of the grand, rational order of things. This perspective transforms our relationship with reality itself. This idea is beautifully captured in the Stoic practice of amor fati, the love of one's fate. The practical application is to not merely tolerate what happens to you, but to embrace it. When faced with a difficult event, a financial setback, a health challenge, a personal loss, the typical response is to say, "Why is this happening to me?" The Stoic response is to say, "This is what is happening. How can I use this? How can I turn this into an opportunity to practice virtue?" It is to treat every obstacle not as an impediment to life, but as a part of life. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. An illness becomes an opportunity to practice courage and patience. A betrayal becomes an opportunity to practice forgiveness and justice. A period of hardship becomes an opportunity to practice resilience and temperance." By embracing our fate, we become alchemists of the soul, transforming the lead of adversity into the gold of character. We stop fighting with life and begin to dance with it. The transformation here is a shift from a mindset of victimhood to one of agency and empowerment. You realize that nothing that happens can truly harm you, because your character and your ability to respond with virtue remain untouched. You develop a deep sense of trust in the unfolding of life, a calm acceptance that replaces anxiety and resistance. You feel a profound connection to the world around you, understanding yourself not as an isolated fragment, but as an integral part of the cosmic order. This is the source of a deep and abiding peace. The Stoic reminder for this pillar is a powerful quote from Epictetus. "Do not seek for things to happen the way you want them to. Rather, wish for things to happen the way they do happen, and your life will go well." This is the essence of amor fati. It is the art of willing that which is necessary and loving that which is. This acceptance is not weakness. It is the highest form of wisdom and strength, aligning our personal will with the will of the universe. Building upon these ideas, we arrive at the engine room of Stoic practice, the power of our own minds. Consider this common modern problem. Two people experience the exact same external event. For example, they both get caught in a downpour of rain without an umbrella. One person becomes furious, cursing their luck, letting the event ruin their entire day. The other person simply laughs, accepts the reality of being wet, and carries on. The event was identical. The rain was the same. What was different? Their perception, their judgment, their inner response. This reveals a fundamental truth about the human experience. We do not live in a world of objective reality. We live in a world of our own interpretations. Our emotional suffering is rarely caused by the events themselves, but by the story we tell ourselves about those events. We add a layer of judgment. This is terrible. This is unfair. This will ruin everything. And it is this layer of judgment that causes our pain. We are wounded not by the arrow that strikes us, but by our own opinion about the wound. The Stoic principle that provides the solution is the mastery of perception. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." He constantly reminded himself to strip events of their emotional baggage and see them for what they are. This is the practice of objective representation. Instead of saying, "I had a horrible, disastrous meeting," the Stoic would say, "I attended a meeting where my proposal was not accepted." The first is a story laden with painful judgment. The second is a simple fact. The practical application of this is to become a vigilant gatekeeper of your own mind. When an event occurs, consciously separate the raw data from your interpretation of it. Practice describing events in the most neutral, objective language possible. Another powerful Stoic exercise is called the view from above. When you feel overwhelmed by a personal problem, imagine yourself floating up, looking down on yourself, your city, your country, the entire planet, and then the vastness of space and time. From this cosmic perspective, your problem, which seemed so monumental, shrinks to its true, insignificant size. This practice of shifting perspective gives you incredible power. It creates a space between an external stimulus and your internal response. In that space lies your freedom to choose. You can choose to see a setback not as a catastrophe, but as a learning experience. You can choose to see criticism not as a personal attack, but as potentially valuable information. You are no longer at the mercy of your automatic, emotional reactions. You become the deliberate, rational author of your own experience. You are building your inner citadel, brick by brick. The transformation that results from mastering your perceptions is the cultivation of true emotional resilience. You become less reactive, less easily disturbed, and more emotionally stable. Your inner peace becomes a constant, something you generate from within, rather than something you hope to find in the outside world. People might remark on your calmness under pressure, your ability to handle crises with a clear head. This is not because you have crushed your emotions, but because you have trained your mind not to create the destructive ones in the first place. The Stoic reminder here is one of the most famous and powerful lines from Marcus Aurelius. The soul becomes dyed with the color of its thoughts. If you allow your mind to be filled with thoughts of fear, anger, and victimhood, that will be the color of your life. But if you intentionally cultivate thoughts of acceptance, reason, and virtue, you will live a life of tranquility and purpose. The world within determines the quality of the world without. Your mind is a garden, tend to it with care. So far, we have explored the core theories of Stoicism. But a common and fair question arises. This all sounds wonderful, but how does one actually practice it in the midst of a busy, stressful life? The great modern problem is the gap between knowing and doing. We read self-help books and feel inspired for a day, but soon fall back into our old patterns of thought and behavior. We understand the theory, but we lack the practical tools for implementation. We have the map, but we don't know how to start walking the path. The Stoic principle that addresses this gap is the understanding that Stoicism is, above all, a philosophy of practice. It is a daily training, a lifelong commitment to improving one's character. Seneca famously said, "Philosophy is not a trick to be paraded. It is not a matter of words but of deeds." The ancient Stoics developed a series of practical exercises, a spiritual regimen, designed to integrate these principles into their daily lives until they became second nature. These are not mere intellectual curiosities. They are the tools for forging a Stoic soul. One of the most powerful of these exercises is called premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. The practical application is to spend a few moments each morning contemplating the things that could go wrong during the day. You might imagine getting stuck in traffic, dealing with a difficult colleague, or having your computer crash. You might even contemplate larger misfortunes, like the loss of a loved one or your own health. The goal is not to be morbid, but to be prepared. By mentally rehearsing adversity, you strip it of its power to shock and surprise you. Furthermore, this practice cultivates profound gratitude. By contemplating the potential loss of what you hold dear, your relationships, your health, your possessions, you learn to appreciate them more deeply in the present moment. You stop taking them for granted. This single exercise simultaneously builds resilience and enhances gratitude, two of the most important components of a well-lived life. It is an inoculation against the poisons of misfortune and complacency. Another essential practice is the Stoic journal. This is not a diary for recording your day's events, but a tool for philosophical reflection. Each evening, take a few minutes to review your day based on Stoic principles. Following the model of Epictetus, you can ask yourself 3 questions. What did I do wrong? What did I do right? What duty was left undone? This is a private, honest self-assessment aimed at continuous improvement. It is a way to hold yourself accountable to your own values and to ensure that you are making progress on the path of virtue. A third exercise is that of voluntary discomfort. The Stoics understood that a life of constant ease and comfort can make us soft and fragile. To build resilience, they would periodically and deliberately embrace mild discomfort. This could be as simple as taking a cold shower, sleeping on the floor for a night, fasting for a day, or intentionally leaving your coat at home on a chilly day. The purpose is to teach yourself that you can endure hardship, to break your dependence on comfort, and to realize that your inner well-being is not contingent on external luxury. The transformation that comes from adopting these practices is that you move from being a student of philosophy to being a practitioner of philosophy. These ideas cease to be abstract concepts and become lived realities. You are not just reading about building an inner citadel. You are actively laying the foundations, mortaring the stones, and reinforcing the walls every single day. Your character is not something you wish for, but something you actively forge in the crucible of daily practice. You become an athlete of the mind, training for the marathon of life. The Stoic reminder is a simple but profound one from Seneca. As long as you live, keep learning how to live. The path of the Stoic is never complete. It is a continuous process of learning, practicing, reflecting, and improving. It is not about reaching a final destination of perfect enlightenment, but about the commitment to walking the path with integrity and purpose each and every day. Philosophy is not a subject to be studied, but a life to be lived. As we begin to draw these threads together, a common misconception about Stoicism must be addressed. The modern use of the word Stoic with a lowercase often means someone who is emotionless, detached, and joyless, a person who suppresses their feelings and endures life with a stiff upper lip. This is a profound misunderstanding of the philosophy. The Stoic goal is not to eliminate emotions, which is impossible, but to cultivate the right ones and to avoid being enslaved by the destructive ones. The Stoics made a crucial distinction between three categories of emotional experience. The first are the propatheiae, or the involuntary first movements. This is the initial shock of a loud noise, the flush of blood to the face when insulted, the sinking feeling in your stomach when you receive bad news. These are physiological reactions and are outside of our control. Even the wisest sage experiences these. They are natural and unavoidable. The second category is the destructive passions, or pathe. These are emotions like rage, terror, deep-seated envy, and crippling anxiety. The Stoics saw these as the result of assenting to false judgments. Rage, for example, is not just the initial flush of anger. It is the result of judging that you have been grievously wronged and that a violent response is appropriate. These passions are what Stoicism seeks to eliminate, as they are based on irrational thinking and are harmful to our soul. The third category, and this is crucial, are the eupatheiae, or the good emotions. These are feelings that flow naturally from a rational, virtuous mind. They include a profound sense of joy, not the fleeting pleasure of external events, but a deep contentment with one's own character. They include a rational form of wishing, or volition, which is the desire for good things for oneself and others. And they include a rational sense of caution, which is a reasoned avoidance of things that are truly harmful to one's character, as opposed to irrational fear. Therefore, the ideal Stoic is not a robot devoid of feeling. The ideal Stoic is a person of profound joy, tranquility, and rational concern for humanity. The transformation is from a life dominated by the volatile and destructive passions, the roller coaster of anger, fear, and desire, to a life characterized by the stable and positive emotions that arise from a mind in harmony with reason and virtue. It is the difference between the chaotic energy of a wildfire and the steady, warming glow of a hearth. The practical application is to become an emotional scientist in your own life. When you feel a strong negative emotion, do not simply react to it. Instead, investigate it. Pause and trace it back to the judgment that caused it. Is that judgment true? Is it rational? Is it based on a correct understanding of what is and is not in your control? By deconstructing your negative emotions in this way, you rob them of their power. You see them not as invading forces, but as mistaken thoughts that can be corrected. The Stoic reminder here is that freedom is not the absence of external constraints, but the mastery of our internal responses. Epictetus, who lived much of his life as a slave, was freer than his masters, because his mind was his own. He understood that no one could force him to assent to a false judgment. No one could take away his virtue. His inner citadel was impregnable. This is the ultimate promise of Stoicism, to make you the sovereign ruler of the kingdom of your own mind. So what is Stoicism? It is not a philosophy of passive resignation or emotionless endurance. It is an active, engaged, and deeply joyful operating system for thriving in an unpredictable world. It is the recognition that the external world is something we cannot control, but our inner world is something we can. It is the understanding that the highest good is not what we have, but who we are, our character, our virtue. It is the acceptance of our fate, not with a sigh of defeat, but with a loving embrace, seeing every obstacle as an opportunity for growth. It is the mastery of our own perceptions, the realization that we are not disturbed by events, but by the stories we tell ourselves about them. And it is a daily commitment to practice, to train our minds as an athlete trains their body, in the pursuit of resilience, wisdom, and inner peace. In our modern world, which pulls us toward distraction, anxiety, and external validation, Stoicism offers a powerful counter-narrative. It calls us back to what is essential. It provides a compass to navigate the complexities of life, always pointing toward our own agency, our own character, and our own inner strength. It teaches us how to be steady in the face of storms, how to find purpose in the face of chaos, and how to build a life of meaning and tranquility, no matter our external circumstances. The journey of understanding and practicing Stoicism is a lifelong one. It is not a quick fix, but a gradual transformation. There will be days when you forget its principles, when you are carried away by anger or worry. This is part of the process. The goal is not perfection, but progress. Each time you catch yourself, each time you choose a rational response over a reactive one, each time you focus on virtue over vanity, you are strengthening your inner citadel. Imagine a life where you are no longer buffeted by the opinions of others. A life where you face setbacks with grace and equanimity. A life where your happiness comes from a deep, internal wellspring of your own making, rather than from the shallow and unreliable puddles of external validation. A life where you feel a profound sense of purpose and a calm connection to the world around you. This is not a distant dream. It is the tangible result of applying this ancient wisdom to your modern life. It is a path of liberation. A liberation from fear, from anxiety, from the endless chase for more. It is about discovering the immense power that already lies within you, the power of your reason, the power of your choice, the power of your character. The Stoics did not promise a life free from difficulty, but they offered something far more valuable, the tools to become a person who is stronger than any difficulty they may face. This is the foundation of Stoic understanding. We have only scratched the surface today, but this foundation, the dichotomy of control, the primacy of virtue, the acceptance of fate, and the mastery of perception, is all you need to begin. Start with one principle. Practice it for a week. Observe the changes in your inner state. The path is laid out before you. It has been walked by emperors and slaves, statesmen and soldiers, for over 2 millennia. It is a path that has been tested by the fires of history and has proven true. As we conclude our exploration today, let us reflect on where we began. We began with a feeling of being adrift, of being overwhelmed by the chaos of modern life. We identified the problem as our focus on the external world, a world we cannot command. We then introduced the Stoic solution, a radical shift of focus inward to the cultivation of our own mind and character, the only domain where we have true sovereignty. We saw how the practical application of principles like the dichotomy of control can untangle us from needless anxiety. We learned how redefining success as the practice of virtue can free us from the hedonic treadmill. We discovered how embracing our fate through amor fati can turn every obstacle into an opportunity. And we understood that mastering our perceptions is the key to building an unshakable inner citadel of peace and resilience. The transformation offered by this philosophy is a journey from being a reactive puppet of circumstance to becoming the calm, rational director of your own inner life. It is the quiet confidence that comes from knowing your well-being is founded on the rock of your character, not the shifting sands of external events. It is the freedom that Epictetus, the slave, knew more profoundly than the emperor who owned him. It is the peace that Marcus Aurelius, the most powerful man in the world, had to diligently cultivate every single morning. This wisdom is your birthright. It is a timeless guide to human flourishing, as relevant in an age of smartphones and social media as it was in an age of swords and sandals. The challenges change, but the nature of the human mind and the path to its tranquility remain the same. The choice to walk this path is yours, and it is a choice you can make in this very moment. Our closing reminder is this: the universe is change. Our life is what our thoughts make it. This is the ultimate truth of Stoicism. Your mind is the loom, your thoughts are the threads, and your character is the tapestry you weave. Choose your threads with wisdom, and you will create a life of strength, purpose, and profound peace. If this journey resonates with you, and you wish to continue to explore this practical path to a better life, we invite you to subscribe to Stoic Understanding and to walk this path with us.